Welcome to Channel AMEC, your insight to the Australian visa system. Good day everyone, my name is Carl Young, your online YouTube visa consultant. Are you interested about Migrate to Australia? Why don't you consider to subscribe to my channel and turn on a little bell on the side. So once we have all the updates and news, you'll be the first one of getting all the insight. Now, I've been requested on the internet in regards to provide a skill assessment video about the occupation of an accountant. Now, it's a very commonly asked occupation, and I noticed I have just missed it. I've never talked about how accountant can actually be skill assessed and how it actually can get along into permanent residency or the visa pathway. So now this is a catch-up for a skill assessment of an accountant. So if you're interested to migrate to Australia, if you're a professional accountant, this will be a very useful video for you. Now let's get into the first page, which is usually and I have commonly referred to on the immigration webpage. You can Google this. All you need to do is whether you punch in immigration and citizenship or you punch in Department of Home Affairs and space skill occupation list. So you should be able to land yourself in this webpage, which is very handy because it provides every single occupation that is accessible to all type of visas under the general skill migration. That includes independent skill, state nomination, and employment sponsor visas. So what I've done here is I've basically punching accountants here, and that shows up with the ANS code 221111. Very handy, very easy to remember. And bear in mind, closely related occupation of accountant is a taxation agent and also corporate treasurer and external auditor as well. And it's all accessible and assessed under 3 authorities. Now it's very interesting because there has been highly talk about immigration wanting to remove accountants from the occupation list, but that talk was back in 20 years ago. Until today is still there. Now the only thing is they make it harder. You need to get more points. I'll take you into the actual the EOI, the skill select system, to have a look. Now it's also very interesting that the it's one of the very rare, probably the only one occupation that can be skill assessed under 3 different authorities. It's very interesting. I think it's just too many too many accountants council, authority, associations. There have been some professionally done of the past 5, 10, 20, 50, probably perhaps 100 years, and they have existed for so long. So that's a chartered accountants and CPA, so chartered professional accountant, and the public accountant, institutional public accountant there. Now we also see that in this page that the accountant is listed under the medium long-term skill occupation list. So that means that it's accessible to all type of skill visas. So that ranked from employment sponsor all the way to skill independent skill visas. Now there's a caveat. You see that little thing there. Now that basically meant if you're seeking for a particular sponsor to sponsor you as an accountant, there is a caveat applied, and that means there's a condition. So once we click on that one there, let me flip that over a bit. You'll be able to see. Oops, can you see that there? Probably not. I need to remove myself. Hold on a second. Okay, here we go. Now, if you really need to be sponsored by an employer, the business size has to be not less than 1 mil annual turnover, and it cannot be that low skill task. That means you cannot be low skill like bookkeepers and things like that. It has to be more sophisticated, as you know, to work as accountant there. That's what they are trying to say there. Okay, let's move into the actual skill assessing authority, and the first one that we are going to take you is into the chartered accountant. Now people ask what's the differences here. That look, there is really not much of differences between chartered accountant, institutional public accountants, and CPA. It's just the assessment result, the letterhead is different because it's different authorities, but the procedures are generally the same. So whether you are a fan of chartered accountant or you are a fan of institute of public accountant or you're a fan of CPA, personally I probably prefer CPA more because the feel or look of the website is much easier to be navigated, and also it's much more clear rather than going into. Well, obviously, you can find all the information here, but I personally prefer chartered accountant. Now, Institute of Public Accountants, they have updated and changed their website. It's all the same. See, if you look down here, qualification assessment, skill employment assessment, fast track services, 485 visa, English requirement. Now, they are generally the same. So if we're looking into 485 visa applicant, that basically means as long as you have completed a bachelor degree or higher in Australia under the major of accountancy, you should be able to get yourself a 485 visa with all these requirements there. Now there's a little prompt there. We don't need that prompt there. Now the English requirement at the time of when you graduated required to be 6 across 4 bands. But once you wanted to transfer into a full skill assessment, you're required to achieve 7 and 4 bands. Now, there's also additional requirement that's jumping to CPA, Migrate to Australia, skill assessment. That's where do we go? Okay, English requirement. I think that's the same. English proficiency requirement. It's the same. There's no differences between any of these three. So. Let's look at, okay, this is CAE, they take CAE, they take IELTS, this is C, that's the same, exactly the same, but it's much more clear. As you can see and notice that the reason I prefer CPA. And if we jump back just one page, where do we go? Okay, now, and we go to skill assessment requirement documents. Here we go, okay. Now that gives you all the list of required documentation. That's so passport, proof of name change if you have name change, official academic awards, transcripts, syllabus is required, professional body qualification, evidence of English proficiency, third party authorization if you are having an agent or third party authorized recipient for you. If there's a Chinese degree, required to go through vet assess to get Chinese degree verified, and then. Furthermore, if we move, let's jump back a bit more. Now, if you are required to validity of your skill assessment, that's about 2 years, and processing time's about 10 to 15 working days. So that's not too bad. So it actually says all these type of different occupation there. Now, full assessment, full skill assessment. Let's talk about full skill assessment. Now, full skill assessment obviously is different than the 485 skill assessment. So full assessment basically meant a post-qualification, and then you have 1 year of work experiences in the profession of accountant, plus you have an IELTS score of 7 across 4 band, then you get a full assessment. And alternatively, you can take a professional year program that's going for another year as well, and then you'll be able to gain your full assessment there as well. Now, finally, I think that's pretty simple as I have explained through. Now, the only thing that I want to talk to you about is how hard is accountants to migrate. Now, as you can see here, it has been put in with asterisks, meaning that there has been too many accountants in the past years, but they are not looking to removing it. But they've been capped at 1,000. Now, obviously, you see 0 here because, as you can see, that basically meant in the past year, from 2020 to 2021, there's no one in the accountant occupation had been invited. Now, they're pretty obvious because the pandemic, the COVID-19 issue there, no one can actually enter, and people working as accountants, whether or not they might be invited by the state nomination, but it's not showing here. What we are seeing here is the federal caps here. Now, there is also a talk of, let's move into the consultant now, management consultant now. Here we go. Okay, now if we go back here, you may see in the CPA webpage, if you study accounting, you can actually also achieve and assess as a management accountant as well. Now there's only one digit difference. It's 221111. It's 221112. There's only one digit difference. That means it's closely related. So immigration now preferred more management accountants rather than accountants solely, and they're given the quota of 4,526, which is 4 times more than 1,000. Now, whether or not this will prolong after July, the new financial year, it's questionable. We'll see that. We'll get you guys updated, and make sure you subscribe to my channel so you get all that update information. Now, if you look at the past information in the invitation round, it doesn't say much because it cannot go deeper than back into 2019, where we know that accountant require a minimum score of 80 or 90 or possibly 95 or 100. But obviously in the past year there has been no invitation at all, so we cannot have those details show on the immigration website here. But what I'm trying to say is, now study accountancy is quite a good profession to be in, but the competition is a lot. However, you might want to pick a different occupation, for example auditor or management accountant, management consultant, rather than accountant solely. And I think the way it will work in the coming future is they will prefer that accountant to actually study in regional Australia, and then after you finish your qualification, you gain your post-study work right, and then you get into employment. Obviously, you get your full skill assessment done, and then you potentially get into employment sponsor and perhaps 491 visa through the regional skill migration pathway, rather than straight away into 189. That's what we just seen, because basically what you're seeing here, accountant is not available at all. They just don't want accountant at this point of time. So anyhow, we'll keep you updated with all the information, and this is a video for the accountant. Should you choose accountant as your profession to study in Australia and your career in the future, make sure you get all this information so you get your skill assessment done perfectly. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.